In front of me here is an extremely fresh 2024 Tesla Model S Plaid. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but we have never done a full build quality analysis on any Model S on the out of spec detailing channel. We did go through Kyle's Model S Plaid over on the out of spec reviews channel when I originally started with the team. Found some issues with panel gaps, fit and finish, some paint defects and things like that. And most recently, we also examined the car after it had been wrecked. But I think it's really cool to be able to have a very, very fresh, I'm talking not even a 1 month old Model S Plaid here to do a full build quality analysis. So we're gonna be looking at all the panel gaps and fit and finish on both the exterior and interior. We're gonna come back out to the outside as well and talk a lot about the paint on this car, some really odd defects that I'm seeing here, and also take some paint readings to see how Tesla has either improved or deteriorated on their paint skills here. So welcome back to another out of spec detailing video here from Clear Detailing in Northern Colorado. Let's jump into it. Well, there is no doubt that the Model S Plaid is one of those cars that is extremely compelling. And over recent years, we have seen huge price cuts on these cars. It's been really hard to understand where these cars actually sit in the market because every other week, Tesla is slashing prices here, taking $2,000, $10,000, whatever it may be off the price. So with Kyle's Model S Plaid, I think he paid north of $140,000 for his car when he originally purchased it. This car, as it sits right now, the Model S Plaid starts at $89,990. This one has a few options on it, so you'll hear me talk about that throughout this video. This one has the solid black paint, which is a $1,500 option. Personally, you couldn't pay me $1,500 to take delivery of a solid black Model S. We'll talk about that more in the video. This also has the $4,500 Arachnid wheel and tire option wrapped around in PS4S tires, which is a nice upgrade that makes this thing look fantastic. This car has the black interior and a yoke steering wheel. In 2024, Tesla is charging you $1,000 for the yoke. I'm surprised they're not paying you $1,000 to have the yoke on this instead of the free included steering wheel. So this car, as it sits right now, comes to right at $97,000. Now, there are no federal tax credits on this. In Colorado, where we are here, you can get a $5,000 tax credit in the state of Colorado, so do keep that in mind. There's a $15,000 spread between the long-range Model S and the Plaid variant. So the long-range Model S starts at $75,000, which is very intriguing for something with this much technology, a huge range, and amazing charging network. But I'm really curious to see how things have evolved with Tesla since we did the build quality review over on the reviews channel with Kyle's Plaid. There's been a few minor differences that have changed with these cars. First off, we have red brake calipers on here, distincting from the Plaid to the long range, which still has the black calipers. We also now have hardware 4 on this, so we have new cameras and also a lack of ultrasonic sensors on here, which will be an interesting point to talk about throughout this video. But I really think it's important on this channel that we do these maybe yearly, maybe every other year reviews of these cars to see how they evolve. For example, Rivian and Lucid, their early cars were put together quite poorly. And with Rivian, I've seen huge advancements in their cars. So I think it's important that we see these cars often, report on what's good and what's changed and what's maybe even worse than when they first came out. So you'll be seeing some of those throughout this year. But I think we should start off here with running through the exterior fit and finish. Tesla has been known to have very, very poor build quality, especially on Model S's and Model X's. It seems to me as a detailer, as I'm working on these cars often, that the more money you pay with Tesla, the worse the build quality is. And that may be down to they produce a heck of a lot more Model 3s and Model Ys than they do Model S's and Model X's. So just keep that in mind. This car is a customer delivered car with 250 miles on it. It was born in February of 2024. I'm shooting this on March 3rd, I believe it is today. I don't even know what day of the week it is. Now this video will be long. We're gonna leave segmented chapters throughout this of exterior fit and finish, interior, and paint quality stuff. So feel free to skip around. These videos are in depth. We're not here to make 10 to 15 minute car reviews. We really go into the details. So let's jump into it. Well, let's start here on the exterior. And I think first off, I gotta say, even though the Model S is largely the same since it came out, what, 10 plus years ago now, the silhouette of it is largely the same, but it's gotten a lot more aggressive, a lot more expensive looking, obviously a lot more expensive as well. But man, this thing is truly wide, especially when you put it to something like a Model 3. You have the nice flared arches here on the front and rear, a new fascia on the front end. I really like the refresh, and in all honesty, I really think the Model S is one of the best looking four-door sedans on the market, bar none. So sleek. It just, I don't know, it looks like a modern day muscle car to me. And with 1,020 horsepower, it kind of is, without, of course, that V8 rumble. But here on the outside, first thing to talk about is the lack thereof of ultrasonic sensors. Now, me personally, aesthetically, I love not having sensors, just these big holes around the front end of the car. It really makes the car look sleek. But I gotta say, as a Tesla owner with cars like this one over here, so this is a 2021 Model 3 long range with ultrasonic sensors. Outside is my 2023 Model 3 Performance without ultrasonic sensors. I vastly prefer having the white car with ultrasonic sensors, because if I'm pulling up to a spot like this, I know exactly how far away I am. But things have gotten better with vision only, but it seems to fail on me often. I haven't played around much with it in Model S, but yeah, there's some cool features, but I personally would prefer to have them on there. I know this is a cost-cutting exercise by Tesla. I would rather pay $500 or whatever it may be to have ultrasonic sensors on my car, if that could be an option, but that's just me. So getting into build quality, now you'll see this bright orange tool here. This is a tool that is really going to help in our build quality analysis. Now the camera has a heck of a time focusing on this, but what you should know about this is a measurement tool for panel gaps. So basically it starts here at 2.5 millimeters, goes all the way up to 15 millimeters, and on this side starts at 5 millimeters, goes up to 15. So this is a lot easier for me to quantitatively show you the data and show you, hey, this looks bigger up here and this looks tighter, but I can actually measure it and show you the differences. So again, we're doing this in millimeters. So let's start here on the hood and just start taking some measurements here. So this is right at about 3.5 millimeters. Now up here, let's take a look at this. It's right about 5, so you can see quite a difference there. In all honesty, in person, this doesn't look largely different until you get down here and you can see how it kind of flares out there. But I think this is a really cool tool that we're going to be using in all these videos to help you guys that are watching these videos see what I see in person. Now, one thing that's odd here is this little plastic piece that you can see I can move right in that area. We'll talk about that more underneath the front trunk. I also want you guys to notice areas like this that have this white mark, if the camera can focus. The non-metallic black really looks good until you put any sort of sunshine or light on it. Man, oh man, this thing is a mess. I got a lot of work to do. But this here is a bunch of compound. So this, again, very, very fresh car. The build date on this is 02 of 24, so February of 2024. It's now March 3rd or something like that, and this car has 250 miles on it. My customer took delivery last week, so he's had it for a week. He hasn't washed it, hasn't touched it. This is how he had it delivered. All I have done here is washed the car and decontaminated it. So keep that in mind. Now, moving up here to the front. So new headlights look fantastic. What doesn't look fantastic is panel alignment here. So let's jump into this. Down here, the front bumper here sits nice and flush in this particular area. Nice tight gapping. You'll notice it's not exactly perfect there, but not terrible. Now in this particular area, the headlights sticking up over the bumper in a really, really tight gap. It gets even worse here, how much the headlight's sticking out. And then you look up here and notice, oh my gosh, that's quite a big gap there. So there's about 3 millimeters, maybe even more up here, and there's literally zilch right here. So a little bit of oddities in the alignment issues here. Now let's take a little measurements here in the fender and hood. It's relatively the same, looks quite good. What's strange on this car, most Model S's that I've had here in the shop, these bumpers to fenders are very, very tight in this area, and I love how those are put together. Much similar to the back of this car, which we'll get to. But as you notice here, if I put my finger behind this gap, quite a large gap in this area, and it quite opens up. This actually feels like it's aligned okay, so the bumper seems like it needs to come up, but I think the headlight may be causing a few issues in there. Now, fog lights down here look great. Tesla really never has issues with these fog lights. At least all of the ones that I've detailed, they look quite good. So moving up here to the hood, I want to take in measurement here. So right at 2.5 mils, maybe slightly over on this side. And then here, exactly the same. And this is not always on Model S. These are always in slightly different areas, but I gotta say, they did a great job here making sure those are aligned well. The tow hook eye here looks like it's very flush. It's not sticking out or anything like that. But again, I want you to notice how large this gap is here on the headlight. So let me just take a measurement here. Quite big, so it's over 5. So we're getting 6 mils there, 5.5 there, and 5 there. So quite large discrepancies in this area. And as you can see, in this particular area, it's a lot tighter. So if we get down there, it's right at 4. So weird things going on here. Same thing going on with the headlight. Fits very flush here, and then all of a sudden, this is sticking up over the bumper. Really, really strange. Don't know what's going on here. Also, quite a big gap in this particular area. So the headlight seems like it needs to come this way, which I do see in this particular area. So alignment issues going on there. Now let's move down to the hood and fender. This all looks good. I will say this gap to me in person and on camera looks a little bit larger than it should. I'd like to see these gaps tighten up a little bit, but let's just take a measurement. So about 4.5 there. Yeah, about the same there. And then what about up here? So right at 3. So a little bit off, but not horrible. Now this side looks a heck of a lot better in this particular area. This seems really, really good right here and a little bit tighter. But again, it's not quite as tight as the rear of the car. Now let's move down the side of the car. Doors have always been an issue for Tesla. My Model 3 Performance has had, I think, 3 or 4 different adjustments on it, whereas my white one over here has had no adjustments to the doors, and they still look nearly perfect. So it's really strange. This car does have some issues with basically the moving components. So I'll talk more about the hood and lots about the trunk. There's some funky stuff going on there. Now the doors on this don't look terrible. First off though, this door is sticking out ever so slightly. Now, me personally, I would probably leave that alone. If they can tighten it up, great. If not, not the end of the world. I am noticing that this rear door sits in quite a bit, and this leading edge of this rear quarter panel definitely sticks up a little bit. So not perfect there, but honestly not as bad as I've seen in the past from Tesla. Now I do notice here on this window molding trim, look in that area, you can see how this one's basically, the front is twisted over and the back one's kind of twisted up. But I think that could be slightly fixed. A lot of the times, like detailers will take these off if you're doing PPFs, vinyl wrapping. These are very easily movable. And this one to me does not look like it's stuck in. I think you can see it's quite tight up here. The gap gets really, really large, and then it gets really tight at the back. So this to me doesn't seem like it's fully sat. As you can see, I just literally push that down. There's a lot of movement in that. So I'll kind of play with that, see if I can get that tighter while I'm detailing this car. But again, these are QC things that, in my personal opinion, should be fixed upon delivery. Now, Tesla has always struggled with these window trims, as I was just talking about. This one on the top section looks fantastic. I will say it gets a little tight here, but honestly, looks very, very good to a lot of Model S's I've seen. And even around here, Very good gapping all in this area. Even once you get back to here, like this looks very, very even. Now, what doesn't look even though is this thing sticking up. So rubber seals have been an issue on Model S. Kyle's Model S had an issue with this particular one here. Never looked quite right, but this is a little strange. So as you can see, this rubber fits nice and perfect all the way down here. And then this one really sticks up and it's kind of overlapping this glass here. Now you can see a big gap right in this particular area. But this sticking up like that, that shouldn't look like that. We'll compare it to the other side once we get around there. Honestly, fender to door gapping here looking quite good. This area down here has always been an issue for them. I am noticing an ever so slight protrusion of this bottom side skirt in this particular area. Be curious to see if that's similar on the back. But let's take some more measurements here and see how these fit. So that's right at about 4 mils there, 4 millimeters, and that's about 2.5. So actually quite a big difference in between there, which I'm quite surprised. What I am liking here though, is as you can see down the side of the car, the side skirt actually fits quite well. This door is ever so slightly in, so you can see a larger gap there compared to the back, but honestly not as bad as I've seen. Now an interesting difference between Model S and Model 3. On Model 3, this panel that goes from here all the way down is all one piece of metal. Whereas on Model S, this is one piece of metal, stops here, and this is a plastic side skirt. My personal opinion, I'd rather have metal there, but it is more expensive to obviously fix that if you damage something down here. So it could be a positive in your liking there. Now, one thing, of course, we always have to talk about with Model S, these door handles. So these door handles have been an issue on a lot of our out of spec cars. So out of spec Dave has had multiple Model S's. I think on his latest one, his white one, he had like 2 or 4 even door handles replaced. And I think they were the front ones and had them replaced and then they broke again. I don't know the whole story. We've been having some issues with Kyle's Model S as well, where the door handles don't respond. We had one instance where the door physically wouldn't close. Alyssa would close the door and it'd pop itself back open. So weird stuff that goes on with these. They of course look very nice. To me though, very, very loud. Every time you walk by the Model S as well, like if it's in the shop here, I have phone key paired to it. Just walk by it, boom, those pop out. They feel very nice, like it's a very mechanical but an electronic feel. Way better than something like Mercedes EQE, EQS door handles, which I would say are my least favorite in the entire EV market. But yeah, they're just annoying to deal with. I think they're fine. What I do notice as a detailer though, we have gloss black in here. This area gets so scratched. It is impossible to get a tool in there, so you have to hand polish this area often. You could put a piece of PPF in there if you'd like. I believe some of the Model S's actually had paint protection film in there, but they turned yellow like immediately, so not loving that. Let's move around to the back because there's some weird stuff going on. So first off, back here, one thing I love about Model S is actually having a hatchback, which gives you a few better things over something like Model 3. First off, you have a larger opening back here, which also makes you have a larger sunroof. So in Model 3, we have a structural brace that goes from here across. But when you have a hatchback, you have structural bracing going back here, which gives you hatchback and a larger glass. I really wish they would implement this into Model 3. Now this particular car has a serious issue that really freaks me out while the car's here. So the customer arrived yesterday. He was telling me, hey, I found a few things like these doors. You can see a huge gap over there. But the thing that really freaks me out is this back hatch. And I'm like, I've never seen big issues with these. The issue with this one, and I will not open this because I'm worried about physically breaking this glass, is that for whatever reason, when this comes all the way up, it is hitting the structural area back here, this leading edge of the glass. I'll put in a clip of when I did open it earlier, it left literally glass shavings on it to where it's hitting the paint in there, it's scratching up the paint, makes a horrendous noise. Tell me, Tesla, how this gets through quality control. If you guys are doing quality control at all, you should be opening up doors, looking at panel gaps like that, closing doors, make sure they fit, opening up the rear trunk here, making sure it's not contacting another part on the car. That to me is just one of those things, like, you just paid $97,000 for this car, and a week later or immediately, you've got to take it back in. It's frustrating, it's annoying. Tesla service is good, but like, that's one of those things, guys, you got to get that stuff dialed in. So that's a little frustrating. Now I will say though, compared to Kyle's Model S, this rear trunk fits better. Obviously it hits, but this area fits a little bit better. Seems to me like it's quite tight up in this area, which this looks fantastic in this particular area. Let's take a quick measurement here so I can show you. Boom. So that's right at 3 millimeters there. But then back here, we're about 5 millimeters. So you can see a lot tighter there as it is here. Let's compare that to the other side. So again, 5 millimeters on the other side, that's about 4.5 there. Whereas up here, it's right at 4. So this side's a little bit better than the other side. Very, very interesting stuff there. Now, taillights have always been a massive problem for Tesla, and no exception here on this particular car. I don't know what's going on with this gapping here, but it's not perfect. You can see this taillight is very much pushed over compared to where it should sit. It's also sitting down compared to this one here. See if I can get a better angle. There you go. Now these, I won't call this a charge port obviously because it's on the other side, but this is where the charge port would be. This looks fantastic in here. And honestly, I don't see that to be the case on most Model S's. A lot of the times these are pushed in, you have really tight gaps here, large gap here, vice versa. This all looks fantastic here until you get to this situation. This tail light's put in very, very well, very flush against it. My Model 3s have had those issues where they're popping out. This side, a little bit better. You can see they're more flush, but man, oh man, is that a large gap there. That is almost 7.5 millimeters in that particular area. For example, a pinky finger, not quite there. We've seen Teslas in the past where that is the case, but yeah, that is a thick gap there. I hope you can see that on the black cars, may not show up quite as well. Now, charge port over here. Obviously, Tesla does it all in the same location, nice ease of use. This one is like the best charge port I've ever seen from Tesla because it's actually put in right. Kyle's like sticks in this particular area. There's no wiggle in this until you touch the top here, but once you press this, opens up. Maybe the car may be asleep right now. There we go. Nice actuation there, immediately ready to charge. Works flawlessly. Now to close this here, you can kind of force it. I don't love doing that, but that's the easiest way to close it. So here, great gapping. It's a little bit bigger up in this particular area. So that's about 3.5, whereas that's probably right at 2 millimeters or so in that particular area. But I gotta say, this area looks pretty darn good. Not something that I see on most Model S's. Now, the back bumper here. This is what I see on the front end all the time. This is how it should look. Super, super tight. That's something like you see from Porsche, but they're on every single panel and they just look fantastic. The only thing that I would complain about slightly back here, this rear bumper sticks up a little bit and doesn't come all the way to where that fender is. You can see small discrepancy. That's getting super nitpicky, but very decent job here from Tesla on the back end. Honestly, the gaps back here look okay, except for the taillight area, which is quite strange. Like, it seems to me the taillight needs to come over a little bit, as I'm seeing this lines up quite well, and then it's kind of pushed in that way. But honestly, not all that bad. It's amazing to me how well they get these diffusers in on Model S. I've never seen any other panel on Teslas that are like perfect every time, and this one's no exception. Super tight gapping down here. Yeah, same on both sides. That's really what I want to see throughout the whole car, not having massive gaps in taillights like that and then having panels hit another panel. That to me is just completely and absolutely unacceptable. This side still looks fantastic all the way down. Noticing the same thing though, you can see that this body line here doesn't line up perfectly, and then it also doesn't come all the way down here. If I run my finger over that, I can feel definitely that this is protruding slightly more. Not the end of the world, but definitely something to notice. This gap up here is always huge. Like, I don't know if you can see that. That's an 8mm gap. That to me is a little excessive, I would say, whereas we have, 10mm there in the middle. So this gap is very, very big. I mean, that's something where a pinky finger easily slides into. So yeah, needs to get fixed in that regard. Now, down here, this is laying perfect. Remember the other side, how this one was sticking up? This looks absolutely perfect here. The glass looks fantastic, and then on the other side, I can just see that sticking up. But really nice job on this particular side. Wonder what's going on with the driver's side. Now here, I am noticing quite a decently large gap in this area. So about 3mm there, and then back here, yeah, way under 2mm. So that could be a little tighter, but honestly, not too bad. One thing I am noticing here, this is sticking way farther out compared to where it should be. And this one is also pushed in. So there's some funky stuff going here on the door. And yeah, this one is also sticking too far this way. So these window trims need to be fixed a little bit. Also noticed all the compound residue sitting under there. This entire car was polished. I don't know why, but okay. We'll get into that a little bit later. So back here, so a little under 5mm. It's sometimes hard with these body gaps, but that looks a little bit larger to me than down here. And it definitely is, because that's, right at under 3mm. So definitely a little tighter down here. Not too bad though. Down the side, again, that skirt is looking quite good. You can see a little bit of a gap right here, but not too bad. This door for sure is sticking out quite a big bit. So we're gonna get that tightened up at the service center. But honestly, like door handles, I'm impressed in this car. Kyle's are very pushed in, like sunken into the body. These seem actually really nice and nicely positioned in the door. So I guess overall on the exterior, minus that panel hitting the other panel, not bad. Honestly, some decent improvements here. I'd like to see, the bumper kind of pushed up a little bit, the headlights fixed. I wouldn't say it's necessarily acceptable for a $90,000 car. I'd want all of these areas fixed, but like when these were 140, nearing 150,000, you're getting into like, Porsche Taycan money. This kind of stuff is not acceptable at all. I don't know. Like, if I was taking delivery of this, I would expect a little bit better, but I also know it's Tesla and it's not going to be perfect. So I think some things could get massaged out and you could be more happy with it. But I think a lot of the things you're going to be unhappy with in a Model S is creaks and rattles. So let's jump inside and talk about that. Well, I've spent quite a bit of time in Kyle's Model S Plaid, both driving, riding passenger, riding in the back seat. And I gotta say, far and above, one of the most frustrating things about this car is just the rattles. I don't understand how this car has so many rattles. Kyle has had multiple service appointments on his car, and it's just like every single day it feels like there's a new rattle that comes up. A lot of it has to do being in this back area. There's weird vibrations when the car sits for a while. You feel it in the throttle pedal. It'll sit there and vibrate and kind of shake the whole car. There's some weird little things in the Model S. Now, that could be a sample of one, of course. This car, I'm not driving this car, but I did want to share my experience with that. There will be rattles. All Teslas really have rattles. My new Model 3 is like, I posted something on Twitter a little while ago saying like, I just bought this brand new car with 3,000 miles on it and there are so many rattles on it, but yet like my white one here is quite quiet. So it's kind of almost a luck of the draw with Tesla. But I just want to say I've had a lot of experience with Model S. There's a lot of things I like and a lot of those annoying things that I'm just kind of like, I mean, come on guys, for the money, we need to make this nicer. So that can be a hard sell for people who really care about build quality. Now I gotta say, the refresh Model S interior, I really, really like. There's a few negatives that I'll talk about, but I think they use a nice amount of materials. The new upgraded seats are fantastic. The door panels look great. Like, it's just a sleek interior that feels good, but you sit too high in the car. Kyle and I complain about this all the time. The driver's seat, we want to be on the ground, you know, like a little kid driving a race car. Whereas you can do that in Model 3. Model S, you sit way higher in. Also, the rear seat to me is not as large as you would expect. It's a big car, but it doesn't necessarily have a massive amount of space. Now, he's put 3 dogs in this. You know, he's got a 120, 130 pound Newfoundland and a golden retriever and other dogs. So there is space, but it's really strange how this car is laid out. The floor sits quite high, but in all honesty, it's a very comfortable cruiser down the highway. I just wish you could sit a little bit lower and that we wouldn't have as many NVH annoyances. Now, one thing that I do want to make note of is air suspension. So of course, Model S and Model S Plaid both have adaptive air suspension. Now, I've been in these cars on long road trips when we did Race to Vegas. Some weird nuances with the suspension. So a lot of the times I was getting this kind of, I don't even know how to explain it, like the porpoising effect when it was in different ride modes, and I could never really dial it in to be like perfect down a highway. This was on some bumpy roads through Utah, and it did get a little frustrating. What I ended up actually doing is put it in the lowest mode possible on stiffest suspension, and it seemed to get that porpoising out, but then you start to get a lot more jarring impacts over like bridges or, you know, even little potholes and things like that. So I never have felt dialed in with the suspension on this. I mean, Kyle's put this, you know, on track through mountain back roads. It's unbelievable how fast you can hustle one of these 5,000+ pound not SUV sedans up a back road. But let's jump into materials here. So new upgraded Model S, lots of really, really good things. So of course, vegan leather here. Now, vegan leather, hate the word. Let's start calling it synthetic leather or something else. The connotation of vegan leather to me is quite annoying. And I think a lot of people may not even look at this car because it has a vegan leather interior. Basically, all that means is it is a man-made material here. And I got to tell you, I prefer it much more to traditional leather. Cleans up easier. It doesn't wrinkle quite as bad. I personally don't feel like you have to moisturize it as much as a professional detailer, but one of the biggest things is it just cleans up so nice. And one thing I love here on the Model S is we have this material here, all soft touch, down here as well. Now, if you get white interior, this panel is all white, which looks phenomenal, but you even have it down here. Now, unlike Model 3, this is all very textured, cheap feeling plastic, and they did a great job making this feel a lot nicer than Model 3. In here as well, in basically where you'd put, you know, Yetis or bottles, whatever that is. Again, still all of that leather. We've got some nice cloth in here. It all looks really good. Also like this accent here on the Plaid where you can get carbon fiber and a little bit of accent there. These buttons here, not quite as good as the new Model 3 Highland to open the door, but this all feels really, really nice in here. Model S and X seats are very different material to Model 3 and Y. Now, my personal preference as a detailer is that 3 and Y are easier to clean. Kyle has a white interior Model S and it stains so much easier, and I have to constantly scrub and clean his interior, of course, with the dogs and long road trips he does. So I would say just keep your interior clean in Model S, and I think you'll be quite pleased with it. An interesting thing to note down here, the lack of plastic in this area. We have a ton of carpet, which is really nice for getting in and out of the car. You're not scratching all this, you know, cheap plastic up. But I got to tell you, Tesla makes some of the cheapest feeling carpet in the entire car industry. As a detailer, it is so annoying to vacuum and get dog hair out of. It's really, really frustrating. But I will say, I do like this implementation. You have a nice aluminum piece here with Model S. It looks very, very good. Really appreciate that. I want to feel this panel over here. Again, all soft touch leather down here, even on the bottom of the glove box. So zero real plastic in here, which I love. It's probably plastic, of course, but wrapped in this material up here. Looks fantastic. This is a little harder touch up here, but still no issues in that regard. I love the carbon accents in here as well. I just think Model S has grown up a lot and it looks finally very nice. Now, my personal opinion, the black one looks very bland compared to the white or cream option, of course, but not a bad looking interior and definitely feels quite good when you're in it. We also have true Alcantara headliner, which, man oh man, I wish they would bring that to Model 3. It's fantastic. We have tilting screen. But I'm going to jump over into the driver's seat and talk about a few things that I love and hate about Model S interior. Jumping in here, I will say the seats are very, very comfortable. Definitely feel like there's more padding, and the material is definitely nicer than Model 3 and Y, but definitely I think it's a little harder to clean. It stains a little bit more, especially on the white one. But I just feel like I sit really, really high in this car. Like, this is basically at my eye level over here. I just want to be like, you know, 4 inches lower in this car. That's just one of those weird things. It's about getting comfortable in the car, but I do have quite a bit of space. Obviously, we have one of these things in here, the yoke. I mean, if you love it, sure, that's fine. I get it. You know, your car's going to drive itself. I personally, it's a no-go for me. I'm a one-handed driver. This makes me feel very, very uncomfortable in any sort of turning situation. I'm constantly fumbling for the wheel. The implementation of having the blinkers over here, when I drive Model S, I don't even use blinkers. I just don't. These are, to me, you have to press them too hard. I have still not gained the muscle memory of it, so I'm like constantly, I got to look down, press, and it just, I'm not super into it. So that's my personal opinion. This is the same thing on the round steering wheel as well. That's just one of my criticisms. What I will say I actually don't mind is having your drive selector over here. It frees up this area. I'm totally cool with that. I just wish they would put blinker here and wipers and all your controls here, because this situation over here gets a little confusing for me. Now, what they have done with the upgraded yoke here is put your horn in the center where it should have been. Having a button here, not a good situation. So you can, boom, hit the horn, easy to go. Another thing should be noted, they have upgraded the material on here. We were seeing early Model S's with the yoke, this all peeling, and really wasn't the great implementation. But me personally, get a round steering wheel. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, literally. Model S interior though is really, really nice feeling. Like, it definitely feels like a massive upgrade over Model 3. Even I would say refresh Model 3. This just feels a lot more thought out to me. I'm one of those people who loves just having the center display, but I gotta say, it is nice to actually have this. It's very out of your view, gives you a ton of information here. You can have maps up here and all different customizable situations. It's really nice on a road trip when you're just blasting down the highway at 80, 85 miles an hour. You've got everything you need right here. Now, display here is moving, of course, in the newer ones. Those are kind of locked in the earlier ones. I actually like having it kind of tilted towards me. Model 3 owners do this all the time. But yeah, it's a really, really nice implementation. 2 wireless phone heaters right here. Yes, I said heaters. I've had these like completely almost fry my phone. Like you're cooking an egg on here. It's insane, but not too terribly bad. This I absolutely love, and I wish they would have done this better in the new Model 3. I think the Model S is perfect for this. So you go to level 1 here and you have your cup holders, and you can push these back. Then you can open this up with another tray, and you have an ample amount of storage here. Really, really nice implementation here. No latch on this. Very nice magnetic feel that goes in there. Plenty of storage down here. Really, really like a lot of things in the interior. I don't understand the yoke thing, and I just want to sit a little bit lower, and man, this interior would feel a lot better. The only thing though that really drives me nuts about Model S is just the creaks and rattles. And it's, of course, I can't show you and tell you all of these things on, on video because I'm not driving the car, but just trust me, go test drive one. You'll be surprised at the amount of rattles and the rattles that come up over time in 1,000 miles once the car is kind of broken in and things like that. It's just very, very frustrating. I do want to point out this is, sticking out in this area, so I'll try and push that back in maybe while I'm detailing it. But really love the implementation of the doors here. Very simple, but I like the use of the vegan material up here. It feels very nice. I like the cloth in here. I think it's a good looking door panel. I just wish on the black one they would maybe have some different accents in here. I think it just looks very bland maybe. My least favorite part though down here is these seat controls. Tesla always puts the cheapest plastic down here. So if I were to complain about anything, you can also hear rattle as these are kind of rattling around. So they feel fine when you're using just the buttons, but like this is just kind of a cheap plastic, and I do hear a lot of rattles coming out of that. Now, back seat is pretty darn good. I would say the space is, again, like I said before, a lot less than you would actually expect. The floor is quite high in this. The roof definitely slopes down, so you definitely feel a little bit more cramped back there, but I don't have major complaints. It is interesting. I called Alyssa earlier to see, does their Model S have rear seat pockets here? I haven't ever even noticed that there's nothing to put in the back of the seat. Interesting implementation. One thing I'm glad to see that they did with Model S is not cheap out on the rear seats here. You know, you still have the same carpet here on the, once you're getting in, you're not getting this all scratched up. You have all that vegan material down here. Like, I see a lot of cars do a really nice job on the front end, and then like the back end, they just take everything out and replace it with a bunch of plastic. Got a nice touch screen back here, really, really large. Actually, this one looks bigger than Kyle's. Huh, I don't know. I'll have to check on that. But yeah, a nice place back here. I would just say it's not the most ample amount of space as you would necessarily see. But I would love to open up the rear end here. Again, I just don't want to break that glass. One more point I want to make here on Model S interior is this rubber strip down here. So if you can see in the back, they're using double insulation here. This is something that Model 3 really needed. I need to check out Highland and see if it has it like this as well, but this helps a ton with sound deadening. Of course, we have 2-pane windows back here. Got to tell you though, Model 3 Highland is quieter than Model S. I said it was still loud. I still really do believe that. When you drive something like an e-tron, that's what I expect in a Model S. Like, you're paying 90 grand for this car, it should be dead silent, and it's just not. It's just absolutely not. So let me get the frunk open. I want to show you a few weird things down there. I will let you know, when I work on Model S's and Model X's, anytime you hit the frunk button, sometimes you walk around to the front trunk, once you hit it once and it won't open, like it's popped open, but it won't fully unlatch. So then you have to walk back around, hit it again. It's easier if you have the app, of course, but let me see if it does that here. So I popped it open, as you can see right here. Let me see if it'll actually open for me. Okay, so that time it did work. Now, there is some weird stuff going on up here. First off, these hood struts, this hood shouldn't be super heavy. It's made out of aluminum, but like the wobble in this, let me show you this. What? And I can literally see, you can just see it bouncing, but you can see the hinges literally flexing over here. Like, how is that okay? Because anytime you get wind, this thing, I just feel like it wants to go into full Mercedes service mode and just snap this back. It is very, very sketchy feeling. Also, this is how the car was delivered. Again, this panel is completely sticking up here. This panel is not even sort of attached in this area whatsoever, and no attachment points. That's a little odd. All of this plastic is like, it just kind of floats in this area. They need more fasteners in this particular area here. Over here, same exact thing going on. Not even sort of in there. You move down here. This is where Tesla gets rattles from. Like, if I can sit there and do that, those rattles will get into the cabin. You're riding down a bumpy road. Where do you think all that noise comes into? The cabin, of course. So yeah, don't love that. Again, this hood to me is just, something is very wrong there, and that is not something only with this car. Now, closing Model S is a lot easier than Model 3 there. Just do it right on the edge. But yeah, some really odd things. Now, if you have a Model S and you have a rear vibration, I'll tell you an area that constantly gets that. And that is right in this particular area. It's nice that it is padded. Again, all that vegan material here, but as you can see, I can just flex this thing, and these clips over time start to get a little funky. Also what goes on, and this is from a Tesla technician, he said if you don't slam your seats closed in the back, so like if you lay down the seats and then kind of lightly close them, it'll sit there and rattle. He said also if it's still rattling after you slam it, just put electrical tape on it. So that is your cure for a $90,000 vehicle to take rattles out of your car, is to put electrical tape on it. Let that sink in for a little minute. So I would say really like a lot of things about the Model S, but there are a lot of just annoyances you have to live with, especially with the NVH, the noise in there and the rattles. I mean, Kyle, every time he gets in the Model S, he's like, oh, I love this car, drives it for like 2 days, and then he's like, I'm sick of it, it's got more rattles. So I think we got to get these dialed in a little bit more. Now, Tesla service will go in, fix a bunch of stuff. He told me last time he had them nut and bolt his entire Model S in the interior. Noises have gone down, but you know, as temperature fluctuates, goes up and down, things move, things start to break in even more and more, and you just still keep hearing all these noises, vibrations, oddities. So think lastly here, let's dive into the paint. There's some funky stuff going on here, and let's jump into it. Now, I have a ton of experience with Teslas and how they come in. They're never really perfect. They've got some scratches here and there. The paint's relatively uneven as far as taking paint thickness readings on it. But what I rarely see is a car that's been entirely compounded and or polished from the service center. Again, brand new car, 250 miles on it. The owner hasn't washed it, hasn't done anything with it. This is how he picked it up. So the car came in, we were looking at it outside yesterday under the sunlight, and I'm noticing just haze all over it. It may look good on camera right now, like an absolute mirror, but as soon as I get the lights out or you look at it in the sunshine, you go, what in the hell happened to this thing? So, like I said, Teslas typically, they come in, they'll get a little paint nib, they'll sand a little area, whatever. That's pretty common around the entire automotive industry. What's not common is a service center, especially Tesla, polishing these things. I rarely see this. Like I'll see maybe one section, like a fender where it may have had a scratch on it and, you know, they tried to polish it out nice. Now, non-metallic black from Tesla is one of the most challenging paints to deal with, even as a 10+ year professional detailer that knows his stuff. It takes me a ton of time to get this paint dialed in. It is truly not easy. It is very down to technique, the amount of pressure, the amount of speed, keeping the car clean while you're doing it. It's a real pain in the butt to properly polish these things out to a high level degree. But I'm going to turn the lights off here and show you guys some unbelievable stuff I'm seeing on the paint of this $90,000+ Model S. Now I want to make a note of this light up here. Every time I put up one of these videos with this bad boy, somebody comments, why do you need a specialized light to see the scratches? You know, it looks great, right? The thing that the Scan Grip does is mimics the sun. So when I'm outside, I can look at the paint in the sunlight, move my head around, look at scratches. The problem with that, if it's noon and the sun's right above us, it's shining right here, I can't see a single thing down the side of the car. So I have to wait till the afternoon to look at it. It's just very inefficient. What this light does is mimics the sun so that I can move it around. It can be at noon, it can be at 6 o'clock, it can be pitch black outside, and I can see exactly what's going on with the paint. So this tool is extremely necessary for paint corrections and finding scratches and swirls and really figuring out what's going on with it. So what I'm gonna do here is shut off the lights because the camera picks it up a heck of a lot better. And we're gonna run through this whole car and I'm gonna show you some unbelievable paint issues. So we've got the lights off and the Scan Grip on here. So what I can already see, look above like that tail light there, a little bit of compound and polish that's probably from the tail lights, but in this area, this is pretty common to what I see. So the paint, you can see everything in this paint. You can see little scratches, you can see little haze, but relatively right here, it looks quite clear. And I would definitely agree with that. The lights off with this particular light on shows absolutely everything. So what I want you to see is like down here above the charge port door where, yes, there's some scratches, but it doesn't look amazing. And then you go to this. what the hell happened to this poor car? So this entire area has been compounded and polished, or at least aggressively polished. And as I go down the car, it's so inconsistent. You can see the door handle there has not been polished at all. And there's this huge mark that goes all the way down there that they missed. And then they just went to town on this poor car. Like, holy smokes. You can see they're just using like a big 6-7 inch pad. Guys, this is a brand new car. Let that sink in. This is a brand new car and the paint looks like this. This to me is completely and absolutely unacceptable. No dealership or service center should be touching these with a machine polisher like this. Send it to a professional detailer that knows what the hell they're doing, because this is embarrassing. Again, down here on the door, okay, I'm fine with some scratches. This may be from, you know, the customer getting in, or some scratches during delivery. We've got a pretty nasty one in this area, but then you have this. This is unacceptable. Down here, some deep scratches in this area, probably during the PDI. Like, this is so much freaking work they've done to this car. And you just, everywhere you go, you walk around it, holy smokes. Look at this panel here. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Anyways, this car's in for a full paint correction, polish, coating, the whole 9 yards. So we're gonna get it completely dialed. But I just want to show this to you. Like, this is how Tesla delivered this $90,000+ top of the line Model S Plaid, and it's just, to me, unacceptable. Down here below the headlight, you can see all the polishing work they've done, and then there's a ton of scratches there, and they didn't even bother to get those out. So the issue with this is you're having somebody work on a car that doesn't know what they're doing and just making an absolute mess of this car when they're taking paint off of a brand new car. So it's like, just don't do this. Just say, hey, car has scratches on it, you know, and let the customer take his car or her car wherever they want. But this to me is just unbelievable. Like, the marks in this, literally when the guy got here yesterday, there was still polishing residue on here. And they didn't even bother to wipe it off. And I'm like, how is this acceptable? Again, it's just hilarious to walk around this car and look at the terrible work that they've done. And it seems like it's only on like top areas. And then you get into stuff like this where there's adhesive left over and they've tried to pick it off and scratch the heck out of the paint. And I'm just like, whoa. Okay. So yeah, to say this is going to be a big detail, is an understatement, to say the least. It's just, I'm at a loss for words. Like, I've never seen a Model S come in like this. Any Tesla come in like this. Like, this is horrendous. Again, I'm okay with this, like having some scratches in there. That's common for every car, but to have this is unacceptable. Now, I'm not going to mention where this car was delivered at. It was delivered in Colorado, in the Denver area, and you can kind of go from there. But yeah, like the whole trunk lid here, we have compounds sitting in all the nooks and crannies, like back here on the spoiler area. Yeah, just like, okay, please, please don't do this stuff, Tesla. This is not acceptable in any regard. So yeah, this is going to be a big one. Lastly, what I want to do here on this particular car is take some paint measurements, see how consistent the paint is. I'm going to tell you from seeing this, it's going to be all over the place. And what I need to do as a professional detailer is make sure I have enough paint to get all this stuff out. Now, a lot of the times, since this is such soft paint, this can be polished out, but some of those deeper scratches that they completely missed or they were trying to fix, like this area, I'm going to have to go in there with a heavy compound, and I want to make sure they didn't take so much paint off that I can't polish it. Also notice the bumper is definitely different color down there. But yeah, I mean, this type of stuff is not uncommon. Like down here, totally fine, I think. It's a soft paint, there's scratches. I see this on Porsche, Lamborghini, Ferrari, McLaren, whatever. But this type of stuff, unbelievable. Well, I've had a few minutes just kind of sitting around and thinking about this car, because I'm just like, I just filmed that clip and I'm just thinking to myself, like, how does a car get delivered like this? Now, again, there's a few things going on here. The non-metallic black Teslas are very, very complicated and take a very high level of skill, technique, product, and everything to really get them dialed in. But again, I was outside with this car yesterday with my customer and I was showing him these just in sunlight, and he's like, I was noticing the same thing. It's like, how do they deliver it like that? And once you wash the car and get all of the polishing oils actually off of it, stuff really starts to come out and show the true naked paint in this situation here. So to me, it's really frustrating. Like, if this were my car and I went to get it picked up, I mean, of course, I would take my Scan Grip Light with me and look at it. I would ask them, what the heck happened here? I would also ask them, like I did with my Model 3 Performance, please don't wash it. Like, deliver it to me completely filthy. I'll bring it here and wash it, which is what I have a ton of customers do. They ask to not have it cleaned, not have it PDI'd, as far as washing and, you know, putting scratches and things like that in the cars, so we don't have to deal with this. But this is an extreme example, and I'm curious to see throughout this detail that I'm doing over the next couple of days if I'm going to see much more of this and why they did that. I'm sure once I get it in the detail bay and really dive deep into it that I'm going to see some stuff. But my concern anytime cars are polished is typically they're doing these quick. Like, I bet they spent literally 30 minutes on this and just went to town. I don't know why that would be. Like, did it have water spots? Was it have scratches all over it? And, you know, this being a soft paint, you can take a lot of paint off very rapidly. Like, I know this paint very, very well. So that's the concern. Again, yes, it looks nice here in the shop. These lights are meant to really like show off, you know, coatings and things like that, but not necessarily meant to show off scratches and swirls quite as much. Whereas, you know, the Scan Grip Light, that's what it's meant to do. So we're going to take some paint readings now. Now, Tesla has never been a consistent paint reading company. They're kind of all over the place. You know, my white Model 3 over here is very surprising as far as the paint meter. It's very consistent and has a lot of paint. Now, that doesn't mean it has a lot of clear coat. It means it has a lot of paint. So what this meter does over here, we have a metal tip down here. It sends a signal through the paint, hits the metal on basically the panel, and basically measures the reading in between there. We measure this here in mils. So mils are different from millimeters. Typically around 4 to 6 mils is the thickness of a sheet of printer paper. So consider that. Within that you have, from your metal to the top of the clear coat, you have a primer typically, you have a base coat, you have a color coat, you have a clear coat. On my white Model 3, we have more color coat, and then the clear coat, of course, this has clear coat as well, but you have more layers of basically that pearl effect paint to make it look like that. So what I want to see here is between 4 to 6 mils. Now this is a very cheap gauge you can get on Amazon. It's about 70 bucks. There are better paint meters out there that are way more accurate, like within 0.001 of the actual accurate reading of it. This is within like 3 to 2% of the actual reading. So it gets us in the ballpark. Again, we're reading this in mils. So 587 there. Nice amount of paint. I'd love to have 6 mils all over this. Again, that's not meaning that the clear coat is 6 mils. That's just meaning everything in between is that reading. So big difference there, almost, you know, well over a mil difference. Let's come up here, 391. So still pretty adequate, I would say. 474. Got a big sanding mark right here. So that's 574, 415, and then 645. So like well over 2 mils of difference right there. Not very consistent. Very similar to what I see on all Teslas in all honesty, besides a few of them. Let's come up here. .385, so that's a little lower than I'd like to see, but not horrible. Like Lucid, I was seeing 2 mils in certain areas, which is like literally paper thin. I mean, less than half the thickness of a sheet of paper thin, so like scary thin. But yeah, I always like to see more paint, and I want to see consistency. So it would be nice, like if I could read this entire panel here and it was all 5 mils or all 6 mils, that means they've got their machines that actually paint the vehicles, or the robots that paint them, very, very calibrated. But you got to understand, when paint flows, it's going to be different in this area than it is on a flat surface. Edges always have less paint on them, so that's, again, why I'm talking about those areas. If they're just hammering these edges, polishing it quickly at the service center, they can do a ton of damage there. So 4 mils in there, I know this entire area has been polished, but that's a huge difference. 4 mils, 535, 446. And I'll show you here, we have PPF 18 mils, so very, very thick right there. This side's not looking too bad, like a little bit more consistent. Let's go in this recess. Yeah, not too terribly bad. Okay, so I have a good rough idea on the paint here, and I'll take more paint readings as I'm detailing this car, making sure that I have enough paint in every single little area and I'm not, you know, removing too much at certain times, and it's definitely a concern. Again, I personally think, like, no car should ever be delivered like this. I don't care if it's $20,000, I don't care if it's $500,000. That to me is unacceptable, to have your entire non-metallic black car polished in such a poor manner. And again, you can see this outside. It looks great here, but yeah, that's really frustrating. So overall, if I were to talk about the Model S here, what do I think? I think they have definitely done a better job with the car, making it more refined. The interior upgrades, of course, over the legacy Model S, I think are much needed and very, very nice in certain ways. I personally think you still sit a little too high in this car. That's a weird annoyance with myself. Other people are like, Model S is great. What are you talking about? So just my opinion there. Also, the rattles and things like that, they're just frustrating to deal with. I mean, Kyle, literally every time he drives the car, he's like, I'm so excited to drive the Model S again. And then he gets in it, there's a new rattle, and it's just like, back to square one again. And you know, that's kind of the thing you deal with Teslas. It's hard to argue with the value of this car, with the tech it has in it, with the phone integration it has in it, with the powertrain this has, a 1,020 horsepower missile that can carry 4 people, dogs, can supercharge, I mean, it is very impressive and compelling, the package that this car is for $90,000. But again, if you're considering, you know, buying something, like maybe you're considering this or a Taycan or a Lucid, like, you're gonna have to live with some annoyances. You're gonna have to live with some annoyances with Taycan and Lucid as well. But some of the things that I see on this are really frustrating. So I would say build quality wise isn't terrible. I mean, this is by no means one of the worst that I've seen. Some door panel alignment here and there I think could definitely be dialed in. I mean, we're getting a little nitpicky here, taking out, you know, the measurement tool, but I just want to be able to quantify what I'm seeing in person on camera. Now, you know, the area back here to me is unforgivable, kind of like the paint. Having this literally nearly shatter this back window is unacceptable. Like, Tesla needs to get that figured out at the factory, not just ship this car off to the service center. They don't even see it again. You know, like when you're PDIing a car, you would think, hey, we're gonna open up everything, make sure like the door closes or doesn't hit something and like nearly shatter the glass. So I don't know how that gets through. That's very, very frustrating. You know, again, $90,000 car, a week later, I wouldn't want to take my car in. Guys, I love Teslas. I own 2 of them. I love all types of cars, but to me, that level of service is not okay. Another thing I want to talk about, if you're purchasing Model S's, I have had a lot of customers had to wait. This car, I believe, was supposed to be here in 2023, was scheduled for a delivery. Something happened with Tesla and they go, nope, you're not gonna get it till March now. So there's been some weird stuff going on with Model S. And then there's more weird things, like just that glass, that should never happen. Porsche would never deliver a Taycan like that. Like, let's just say that. So, you know, if you're really wanting top of the line build quality, Model S is not for you. But if you can live with some of these annoyances that most Teslas have, it's a really compelling car. It's not perfect. I don't necessarily expect it to be 100% perfect, but there are some things that I just think are a little unforgivable on this particular example, and things that I've seen on Kyle's car that are just like, how does that leave the factory like that? So Model S, one heck of a car, but you're gonna have to live with some annoyances. Thanks so much for watching another out of spec detailing video. We'll see you in the next one soon. Bye-bye.